Hello, I'm Sean Lambert, and today I'm going to talk about a Gettysburg map that I made for a Kriegspiel game that I'm hoping to host in the near future. So, without further ado, let me jump right into the first step of making this map, which was in QGIS, which is a free GIS software. So, this is the finished map, more or less. At least as far as the GIS side of things go. And you can see here that this has some familiar names on it: Big Round Top, Little Round Top, Devil's Den, all these places that are so famous from history. I've labeled and put down here. But how do you get to this point? And how do you do it efficiently? Well, as you can see, this is kind of shares a lot in common with Photoshop. So if you're familiar with Photoshop at all, or familiar with database management applications, it will feel pretty natural to you. If you've never used Photoshop and you've never used databases before, it's going to feel pretty awful. But I will first show you kind of my first humbling steps. Usually it's quite a process going through this, but I think that with enough practice, you can get it down to, you know, 45 to an hour to do a map of this quality. If you wanted to do a high quality map, it would take you a lot longer, but I whipped this out last night in, I don't know, an hour and a half to have a prototype. Really wasn't bad. I got some feedbacks from players about the visibility of certain objects, but really it was not that hard. So if I can do it, anyone can do it. This layer here is probably the starting point for most maps. You're going to bring in the OpenStreetMap. This will come installed with QGIS. You don't have to do anything else. You just take this OpenStreetMap and you drag it down into the layers area here. And then this map of the entire world will pop up. And it's basically Google Maps. It's not really any better than Google Maps, but then all you have to do is navigate to your battlefield. So say we're doing some like Eastern Front battle, and you want to know, like, what's a good one? Maybe like Pskov. We want to have a battle of Pskov. So we come over here to Pskov. We have Lake Pskov off to our north and west here. And then we have Pskov kind of in the center of the map. And then what I would do is basically just draw a big square around this with a polygon tool and use that as our background color. So I'll go back to Gettysburg here, but that's kind of the process that I would go through. I would, locate the map, locate the location of the map that you want to do with your, OpenStreetMap, and then do your background layer right there. But to do the background layer, you can see I didn't even bother to draw like an actual square. I just kind of very quickly just drew a giant like blob around the area that I was working with. So this will be the background color of your finished map. Because eventually what you're going to do is you're going to hide this OpenStreetMap layer because it's frankly pretty ugly. So you're not going to be using that for your actual game. That would be crazy. Also, there's some like copyright issues, I'm sure. You don't want to get into it, so just use it for tracing, essentially. So now that I have the background, I would re-enable the OpenStreet layers. And what I would do is I would trace over the modern features here if I'm pretty sure that they have a historical basis. So like in this case, this Wheatfield Road here, I know from the National Park Service website that this was a road in the battle, and this Emmitsburg Road was in existence, and the Slider Farm Lane here all existed. But a lot of these other roads off to the right, those are new. Those were built for the National Park Service battlefield preservation. So this road here that goes through Rose Woods, that didn't exist at the time of the battle, according to the National Park Service. So all these little side roads here are new. So you don't want to draw those in because that'll change the game. So I just traced over the top of all the roads that I wanted to keep in the map. And then I did the same for the rivers. And when you're tracing these things, you are always going to use a shapefile layer. So when you click new shapefile layer, pretty much every time you're going to be doing the polygon shape. And that just means that you can draw on that layer. It behaves a lot like Photoshop, except it's more like the Photoshop select tool. So if you think of the Photoshop select tool, you can either use like the lasso select or the rectangle select. That's basically how polygons work in GIS. And you use these layers and combine them to make your whole map. So those are the tracing ones are the easiest ones to do. Then when you get into terrain, you need to start thinking about popping your open street layer on and off to be able to see what's going on here. So I drew all these shapes, and initially everything will show up in like this horrible orangey or purple color. It just like defaults to some random, just blank color. So when I wanted to do the forest areas, what I did is I just filled in all the shapes first, and then I worked on the texture. So do the shapes first because at least the bright colors are very easy to see, and then come back over the top and right click the layer, go to properties, and then you'll come to the symbology tab. You'll change it from a simple fill to a point pattern fill, which is just the one that has dots in it here. This pattern dot black. So you click on that, it'll change the type to this point pattern fill. And then you come down to the marker level and you change it from, it'll start as filled marker, I think, something like that, or maybe simple marker. And you just change that to SVG, scalable vector graphic marker. And then the program itself comes loaded with all of these SVGs already installed. And then you just come down here and would you look at that? There's a nice little land use coniferous and deciduous tree symbol that you could just select for this. And then you just change the colors to whatever color suits you. This is probably the most time consuming part because you want the color to be readable and identifiable as like tree color, but you don't want to have it be too bold so that your contour lines aren't visible. So this is kind of what it looks like once you have all your different terrains labeled. So I did that same basic thing. I put in different scalable vector graphics for each different terrain type. Got this marshy stuff over here. These little orange blobs of the peach orchard. The wheat field is just straight lines, vertical, and a gold color. And then the Devil's Den areas, like these little rock formations that I found. So all those are just little SVGs, and I just chose different colors for them and different outline colors. You can go a lot harder with this and make better looking map, but for my purposes, this is all I really wanted. So then once you do all your tracing, what I did is I went to do the contour lines. And to get the contour lines, you have to bring down this other tile called the global terrain tile. So you drag that down here, and then what you want to do is rename it to be elevation and whatever your unit of measure is, in this case meters. And then you can see here, these are the contour lines. It doesn't look like that when you first bring it down though. What it'll look like is something like this. It'll look gray, and it has color bands that will control. So like if you were to zoom out really far here, you could see that it is the terrain of the entire Earth. That's what this layer is. So in my case, what I wanted to see is just the elevation that is relative to my particular map. I didn't want to see everything on God's green earth necessarily. So that's why when you're first bringing in a layer, don't panic if you see it's just a blob of gray. Because what you do to get the symbology correct is you come up here to symbology, change it from single band gray over to either hill shade or contours. In my case, I chose contours because I want it to look very simple, very clean. And then I had a contour interval of 5 meters. So this number here is going to be measured in the unit of measure of whatever coordinate system you're using. In this case, I'm using a meter-based system. So this is in meters. So I typed in the number 5, and then I left this one as 0. So there's actually only one contour level, and that's all I did. It's that easy. Then all you need to do is change the thickness of the line. So in here, you could just change the width of the line or the color. You could make it dotted, dashed, embossed, neoned. So if you wanted a really crazy like neon color, you could do it that way. If you wanted to look particularly horrible. But yeah, there's a lot of options in here for what you want it to look like. If you were, say you knew a railroad is at a certain height, you could do it this way. Oh, looks like railroads. This would actually be a nice one for front lines too. But it looks kind of good. Just simple straight lines. So that's all I did. I'm going to delete this layer now because don't really need it. But basically all I did was I plopped in that elevation layer and did all of these nice terrain layers, and then I turn off the OpenStreetMap, and then I have to go back and reference again some sort of historical document to find the labels of things. Or you could just take the labels straight off the OpenStreetMap, although in general names have changed in 150 plus years. So when you're looking at it, the names on a modern map might be different, and especially if you're doing European countries or countries that are non-English, the OpenStreetMap does not display English names. It displays whatever the native language of that region is. So if you're doing a Ukrainian map, it's going to display in Ukrainian. If you're looking at the Finnish map, it'll display the Finnish spellings of names, which everyone knows are basically gobbledygook. Just kidding. Sorry, Finns. So the most common application would be just to translate the names into English or whatever your native language is. If you're a Spanish speaker, you would still want to translate the Russian names into Spanish. So what I did with the labels is these are actually points. So you just put down a point everywhere where you want to label, and you can actually see those if you come onto labels layer and see that's where the actual point is. So these are just points. And then with the points, you can turn off the symbology on them and turn on the labels. And then all I did was add this script font. And I kind of like the look of the name on Longstreet Attacks. It's like this nice script with a very bold outline. So to do the bold outline, I used a buffer, a text buffer, and a pretty thick one too, a full millimeter in size. And then I set it to like this bright yellow color. which I think looks pretty darn good, and it's very readable too when you have all the layers on. So then once you have all your labels done, you can turn off your OpenStreetMap layer. And then the last layer you would need to add is a grid. And to add a grid, you just create a new layer, a new vector layer, and come up here to where was it? Research tools. So vector, research tools, and create grid. And that will let you set the spacing of your grid. In this case, this is a 100-meter grid. So it's just 100 horizontal, 100 vertical, and then you click run. And change your type to line. You can also do hexagons if you want to do a hex map, but it works the exact same way. So you do 100, 100, and you get 100-meter hexagons. So that's it. That's all you have to do. And then once you run that, you can change the symbology of the grid. So once the grid is created, in this case I wanted a dashed grid, because that's what we commonly use in Kriegspiels, because the boxes are fuzzy. It's not like in board war gaming where you have to be inside of a hex. In Kriegspiel, you could be in between two squares, and that's fine. They're more just to give a visual guide to distance. But you can be in between the grids. So that's why I made it a dash line. If you wanted to indicate that it's a really solid line, you could do a different symbology, basically. And that's all you need to do. So now you have your grid, you've got your rivers, roads, all your labels, all your terrain is done. So now you just need to print it out to a format that you can either do further editing on in Photoshop and clean it up and make it look really nice, or this is already good enough that you can just bring it into Tabletop Simulator or Vassal, whatever you use for your maps, and start getting your order of battle together. So in that case, where you want to just bring it right into another program, what you actually need to do is to create a new print layout. So you go to Control P or New Print Layout under Project, and then that will create a whole new print layout here. And to add the map in, you just click Add Map, and then click your button, and bada bing, bada boom, you've got your map brought in. In my case, I decided that I wanted to bring in the legend and a north arrow. So you bring in a north arrow maybe. You could bring in a scale bar if you wanted a scale bar, although I don't know if the scale bar really worked exactly how I thought it would, because it's not the same scale as the map, I don't think. It was weird. Something was off about it. You can add in the legend. So this legend will show anything that is on the left hand side over here. So if you don't want it to show up, like say we don't want this open street layer to show up anymore, we would have to remove that layer, and then it wouldn't show up here. Although I think you could actually, with a setting here, only show items inside linked maps. If you do that, then it gets rid of it for you. And you could give this a title like, that. I guess you'd probably just call it Legend. Not too much thought to it. And you can actually change the fonts on this to make the font match your other fonts on your map. And that's really all there is to it. If you wanted to add a couple of extra like random labels, like say this is like your reinforcing area. Say this is Union reinforcements. You could do that over here. A lot of nice little tricks you can do. let's just make this a little bit bigger so it's more readable. So you could see that it's just very easy to add little labels. You could do a second map, like an insert. So this print layout is very powerful for just making very quick, very easy maps. And then when you want to export it to your game, all you do is click this export as image button, and it will automatically default to the PNG format. And then you just export that. So without overthinking it, you can get a very good map in a very short period of time, which is what I love about it. Now what I want to do is I want to switch over to showing Tabletop Simulator, and this is kind of the quote-unquote final version of the map. So you can see here I added a title as well. I left in the north arrow, although I changed it a little bit. I added the legend on the right-hand side, and then I started bringing in the pieces. And my Kriegspiel club has these really nice scripted pieces. So let's look zoomed in here. You can see how nice it looks when you zoom it in. So these are all infantry, but the amazing thing about these scripted pieces is that you could change the names of the divisions. So in this case, this is a division marker, but these are actually brigades. We don't have brigade markers because usually we play brigade level Kriegspiel. This is going to be a regimental level because this is a smaller part of the map. But each of these blocks would then be a regiment. You can label them by flipping them over and changing the text. It also can track ammo, morale, and manpower, so that's kind of nice. And you can change the formation, so if you want them to form square, they could form square like that, which is kind of cool. Or if you want them back in line, that's just regular. You can set the number of pieces in your artillery. So like say you actually want 8 guns here instead of 9. Changes the marker on that, and you can rename the artillery to whatever the commander's name is. And you can set them to limber and unlimber. So when it's limbered, it has that little arrow thing, and when it's unlimbered, it just shows the artillery piece. So yeah, a lot of very powerful tools built into this Kriegspiel scripted pieces module. You can see there's other types of pieces. There's actually like automated couriers that will track your courier's position. I don't really know how to use those, to be honest, but they're cool. And I deleted some stuff out of here that I didn't actually need, but very, very nice pieces, really easy to play with. So that's pretty much ready to play at this point. Obviously, this order of battle for the Union isn't complete, and there's some missing artillery on the Confederate side still, but Confederates are pretty much done. I just need to add in a few Union and then set up the reinforcements for the Union, because most of the units are coming from off map for the Union. They're going to come in via this road. So the main force is not even visible at the start of the scenario. So if you have any questions about how to make maps, or how to play a Kriegspiel battle or anything like that, feel free to ask me. And if you are looking to play Kriegspiel, please seek out the International Kriegspiel Society, IKS. They have a YouTube channel. There's a website. They have a Discord. Most of the stuff happens in the Discord. But it's a really nice way to get into some games of Kriegspiel and experience war games as they were played by the Prussians. And I find them very fun, very entertaining, and they're very light too. So while people can get very heavy and into them, you can also just set something like this up, and as long as you can pick up like 8 or 9 players, this could be a lot of fun. Each guy could command just a single brigade, and then it's not super overwhelming. As long as you have a couple umpires, like one for each side, you could easily do 8 or 9 players in a scenario this size. So until next time, see ya.